Let's back up till I smell it. Okay. Good morning.
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 Let's try again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. Everyone is awake. Hopefully you have something to drink. Hopefully some sort of libation. We're going to get started this morning knowing that Dave Licata is the Toastmaster today. We're going to be looking for Dr. Stevens online for our inspiration. Is he there online?
I am here. Inspiration for me a lot of times is quotes. I don't do the quote master. Hopefully we won't have some repetition here. We'll see. And the theme seems to be in regards to work in the old time places when I can tell. So I find the harder I work, the more luck I seem to have. Thomas Jefferson. There are no secrets to success. It's the results of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. Colin Powell. So that's my inspiration for today, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. If everyone could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Before I introduce the Toastmaster for today, I got a confirmation this morning that I need to continue with my New Year's resolution of losing weight. I got in the car, and as you know, in extremely cold days, it says low tire pressure. I had low tire pressure in all the wheels except for the one underneath the driver. So that tells me that the weight distribution of the car is not the problem, it's the passenger. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dave Licata, our Toastmaster for today, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was a bit of I wasn't a good student. And I didn't find out that I could be a good student until I got out of good old Niagara County Community College. And I got all the stuff I hated behind me. The algebra, the English. Well, no, I liked English. Well, I got the hard ones behind me. So now on to Brockport, I'm like a kid in the candy store, and it's just fun courses, the ones I've been waiting for. So in the spirit of Marshall McLuhan and all that media stuff I studied, I shouldn't say stuff, I'm sorry. And I shouldn't apologize either. But in the spirit of media hot and cold, when I just leaked out this little bit of information, one on every corner, that meant you, as my brother and sister Toastmasters, had to do the work and figure out what exactly did I mean. This is a reference to all the mom and pop little stores that used to be on every corner. Well, we all know how sharp our brother Larry McKenzie is. He wins contests. He does all this electronic jazz. He's an amazing man. He's my word master, if he didn't figure it out. Larry McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Licata. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, our word of the day today is convenience. C-O-N-V-E-N-I-E-N-C-E. Convenience is a noun. And it's a thing that contributes to an easy and effortless way of life. And speaking of convenience stores, it brought a lot of good memories back. I used to live on LaSalle Avenue and 19th Street before we moved over to Pine Avenue. And there was a little grocery store there. It was called, nobody knows, 19th and Ashland. It was called Marasco's. They did everything there. They had Trosello's bread. They were a butcher shop. They were also those wonderful families that lived right upstairs above the store. And there were a lot of families in the neighborhood that at the time worked week to week, as most families did, with one income. And they used to have this little book. And you'd go there and you'd pick up your bread or your milk and they'd write it all down in the book. And then when you got paid on Thursday or Friday, you'd go in and take care of your tab. Wonderful thing. Convenience is your word of the day. Mr. Toastmaster.
Oh, thank you. That was our own Ann Southern from the TV show, My Private Secretary. Oh, am I going back with that one? All the young people are going, huh? All right, in person, it's Sylvia Baptiste, Eric Snyder, Larry McKenzie, Lynn Thornton, Jackie Kenny, Steve Smith, Carol Halstead, Nancy Ferry, Thomas Hudline, Dave Licata, Mike Licata, Mark Campos, Katie Banks, Marty Johnson, Tracy and Phil, zooming in this morning through the miracle of electronics. Tom Rand, Mike Florio, Margot Sue Bittner, Jen Zapla, Ryan Floor, and I guess Dr. Jer's there too. So I'm going to resist all the temptation to look off over my left shoulder and take a peek because it's just so silly. So that's what I'm working on. Now, speaking of the word of the day, convenience, Licata Cigar Store morphed into Jiffy Mart, which became a convenience store to the chagrin of the people at the Washburn Street Market. Because we started selling a lot of groceries like they didn't. They were a bit miffed, but that's a whole nother speech, so we'll let that go. Nancy Ferry will now report on my grammatical mistakes I've had already. Nancy, our grammarian.
I'm happy to report that you did oblige. Hadda is not a word in our English language. It's had to, but that's okay. We're gonna learn from today and start over fresh. I'm going to be listening for grammar that is wonderful and exciting and lights up the room. And also I'll be listening for those ones that make my ears cringe and the hair stand up on my back. Not that I have much, but wonderful meeting, I hope, today. So thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Oh, Nancy, I chilled to have that much hair. All right. Wait a minute. Did I read Mike Florio's name off that list? Because I don't want to peek. Mike Florio is our master. Michael, please share your duties with us. Thank you.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, thank you. I will be listening intently for the ahs and ums, and then I'll report back at the end of the meeting. Now, I do want to talk about the convenience stores that you talked about. And growing up in the west end of Lockport, I remember three distinctly there's my Grayson's. I don't know if you remember that one, Dave. It was on the corner of Webb Street and West Ave. Pelicanos.
It's amazing because I don't remember that one. Thank you for bringing me up to speed.
That was one I had to go to. My mother would send me there when I was a kid to get 2 cans of purine and 2 cans of paste for the sauce when we made spaghetti. And then I remember Tribulix on Bristol, where you could go there as a kid and you'd get a little brown bag and 25 cents, you'd fill it up with candy, and that was awesome. So thanks for sparking those memories, Dave.
You're welcome, Michael. This is the best segue I've ever had in a long time. Before I introduce our tech and gesture master, she wants to remind you that the kids on Bristol are sharp as a pistol when they do the Bristol Stomp. The home street of her husband, Kevin Kenny, is our tech and gesture master, Jackie Kenny.
Yep, Mrs. Trebulix was in the middle of the block. I remember it well. A lot of those little grocery stores, I think, provided supplemental incomes for families over the years. As your tech and gesture master, I will be paying attention to the way you appear, whether it's on screen or up here at the lectern, to your use of technology for those people who are out there in the ether world, and whether you are watching how you use the microphone and what you do while you're up here. And I will give a report at the end. That is all.
I hate to be petty, Mike Florio, but you forgot Foodland. You forgot the Columbia Market. The West End was a haven for people of Italian extraction. I drove down the West Avenue, I don't know, 45 years ago, 50 years ago. I saw a woman in a black dress with a mole right here and her hair up with a darning needle. And I said, and those ladies are gone, they're gone. And that's what you used to see on West Avenue. People that were born in Italy, they had to go to the Columbia Market. The Columbia Market had snails in a great big basket. You just scoop them in and take them home. And Foodland had everything else. All right. Sylvia Baptiste, our quiz master, because there's no point in coming here unless we're tested and find out what we learned. Sylvia Baptiste.
I do have to credit my mother for my interest in money because I think she purposely forgot to shop for one item every week to send us to the corner store and teach us how to manage money so that I could buy candy with the change. So today I'm going to quiz everyone after the program and see how we are listening today.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Oh, we have an opening. I have to do a little housekeeping. Is there a kind, generous soul who likes to overlook a lot of things? I need a general evaluator. Anybody want to step in as general evaluator? Hey, Tom, you don't have a job? Oh, John, or Tom, during the fact that you really enjoyed teasing me, and I cleaned that up, I can't think of a better job for you. Our brand new, out of the box, general evaluator, Tom Moran. Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I have to say that being your general evaluator today is quite, I couldn't hope for a better job. I do so appreciate you approving of it. I know there were a couple of people who wanted to, but what's going to happen here is I'm going to evaluate, well, the evaluators, and of course, David's performance this morning, which, ooh, man, that's a task. And I will be reporting at the end of the meeting when I'm called upon by the Toastmaster of the day. Thank you, Mr. Licata. Please continue.
Gee, Tom, thanks. All right. We have more than our share of clever Toastmasters. And there's no argument here about who's incredibly clever. Our quote master, Jen Zapla.
Hello, Dave. How are you this morning?
If I was any better, I'd be twins. It would take two people to feel this good. Go ahead.
Well, I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little bit sad about your theme because I can hear some of the sadness in your voice at having to choose it. But that being said, I do have a lovely quote for you today. And that quote is, like the best convenience store in the world, the mind is always open. And that is coming to you from Eliza Lowitz.
Thank you very much. You have a quote? Now we need a jest. Ryan's up there, right? Okay, great. Haven't seen Ryan in a while, but he's been very busy with that new father thing. Second only to the new mother thing.
You want to talk about convenience, Mr. Toastmaster? Those babies make great alarm clocks. So
Go ahead.
I spanned the entire realm of corners when it came to jest, just to make sure I could keep my audience entwined from A to Z here today. So I have a couple of quick zingers, and then I have I don't know if it's a joke, but we'll try it. So what do you call a billboard that falls on your head?
I don't know, Mr. Bones. What do you call a billboard that falls on your head?
A bad sign.
Oh, that's great. On the groan. Wait a minute, Lenny, Larry, did you get that on the groan meter? What did it register? Okay, 2.7 on the groan meter. Do you got another one, or is that maybe it?
Oh, we got some climbers here.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
What's the only thing that gets to sit in the corner doing nothing all day and still travel all around the world? A stamp.
Oh.
Well,
Is this the last one?
I can make it worse.
Okay.
So a guy wakes up in the corner cell and asks the cop, "Why am I here?" The cop says, "Drinking." The guy says, "Great, when do we start?"
Thank you.
All right, and finally, this morning, this is a little bit longer. It might bring a tear to your eye, it might bring a laugh. But two guys from Buffalo die and wake up in hell. The next day, the devil stops by to check on how they're doing and sees them dressed in parkas, mittens, bomber hats, and warming themselves around a 55 oil can fire. The devil asks them, "What are you doing? Isn't it hot enough for you guys down here?" And, "Well, we're from Buffalo. It's the land of ice and cold. We're just happy for a chance to warm up a bit, So the devil decides that these two aren't miserable enough and turns the heat up. So the next morning he stops by it again, and where they are, dressed in their parkas. Now they got mittens and hats on. The devil asks them again, "It's awfully hot down here. Can't you guys feel that?" And they say, "Well, like we told you yesterday, we're from Buffalo, the land of ice and snow and cold. We're just happy to warm up a little bit, So the devil gets real steamed up and decides he's going to fix them up real good. He cranks the heat up as high as it'll go down there. The people are wailing and screaming everywhere. He stops by the room, and the two guys from Buffalo finds them in light jackets and hats now, grilling sausage and drinking beer. The devil's astonished and says, "Everyone down here is in abject misery, and you seem to be enjoying yourselves." And so the Buffalonians reply, "Well, we don't get too much warm weather down here in Buffalo. We just got a nice cookout when the weather is this good." So the devil is absolutely furious. He comes up with an answer. The two love the heat so much that he decides to turn it all the way off. So the next morning he wakes up, the temperature's below zero. There's icicles everywhere. Everyone's shivering. They're not even able to scream, moan, or gnash their teeth. So the devil smiles and heads for the room with the two Buffalo guys. He finds them in their parkas, their mittens, and their hats. They're jumping up and down. They're cheering. They're celebrating. There's an empty Labatt 30 rack sitting there. And he goes, "How on earth could you possibly be so happy?" And they said, "Well, hell's frozen over, so the Bills have won the Super Bowl."
Hardy, har, har, har. I want to share with you that I am the luckiest man in the world. My wife has already made arrangements with the Buffalo Bills organization, and when that terrible moment comes and I'm laid to rest, I will have 6 pallbearers that are Buffalo Bills, so they can let me down one more time. Had to do it. All right, now, everything here at Toastmasters is timed. We have quite the administrative person She works over at City Hall, for heaven's sake, so she knows she's gonna be strict. Tracy Farrell, our timer.
Toastmaster. So today's, I have to tell you my convenience story. When I was a kid, there was just behind Grace Episcopal Church was Jerry's Mart. Tracy Landrigan, my best friend, lived around the corner, and they would go and buy candy every week with Monopoly money. And Mrs. Landrigan would have to go every Saturday and pay up their bill. Those are the good old days of convenience stores. As for timer, table topics is 1.5 to 2 minutes, speeches usually 5 to 7 minutes, and evaluations 2 to 3 minutes. If you're here in the room, there's the lights that you can watch. Most of the table topic speakers, I believe, will be online. If there is not somebody online that can do it, I will be holding up the red and yellow so that the online people can see. Thank you, Mr.
Our table topic master is a native of New York City, so he will be telling us about his favorite bodega. Mark Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. They weren't bodegas back then. They were just corner stores. At least in my neighborhood, that's what they were called. And yes, it may come as a complete shock, but there were quite a few options within walking distance where I grew up. The closest one was diagonally across the street, opposite corner. It had a real nondescript sign. It just said Superette on it, which I had to look it up. I wasn't sure what that meant. It just means a small market. But we knew it more by the owner of the place. When I was a kid, it was owned by a guy named Bill. So I was sent to Bill's. And later I was sent to Mike's and then to Romeo's. And you could get just about anything there. Didn't really buy groceries necessarily. You could get candy, newspapers, baseball cards, all the essentials. You could get a sandwich made, did some cold cuts. So it was kind of pretty convenient. So I would like to ask our first contestant this morning, who will be Margot. Margot, I'll ask you a more general question. Can you paint us a picture of your neighborhood growing up?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak first. Seems to be a tradition when I log in. I could paint, we actually did have a small convenience store in my neighborhood. I lived in the suburbs of Albany. My parents were the first people to live in our little split level home. And it actually had a backyard that my parents thought was absolutely humongous. It was an entire 1/4 acre. Now, to somebody growing up in New York City, that was a huge area. However, now that I live on a farm, it's like, that was the tiniest lot in the world. One thing it did have, though, was a hill in our own backyard. And so we actually could sled as little kids when it was a nice gentle slope. And we had a swing set and a lot of neighborhood kids. For those who don't know, my maiden name was Randall. And across the street was one of my best friends, my kindergarten buddy, who I walked to school with uphill both on ice both ways. And his name happened to be Randall Post. And I used to harass him even as a little girl saying, but if we got married, wouldn't you have to be Randall Randall? And he never appreciated the joke very much. But that's the neighborhood I grew up in. There was a store we could walk to. It was actually a large, they called it GEX, government employees. You had to be a member and you had to have a card to get in, but it had everything. It was like today's Kmart. I know it doesn't exist, but that was the type of store it was. So that was the neighborhood in which I grew up, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Margot. Our second contestant this morning, Carol. would you care to tell us about your favorite corner store or mom and pop store?
Actually, I grew up on Whitney Avenue, next to Lacelle Avenue in Niagara Falls. And on the corner of Whitney and 24th Street was our small mom and pop type store. The owners actually lived in the building. And one thing I remember is I was very shy growing up. And if I went to the store to get something, I'd always kind of stand in the back and wait a long time for my turn until everybody else was through. And then one day, my mother spoke to the owners and said, she's very shy, maybe you could, kind of encourage her to come up, which they did. And after those people sold the store, my next door neighbor bought it, or not bought it, but started running it. And at times I went down and helped her out a bit. And now that area was turned into an apartment. There's no corner store there. And there used to be some on Hyde Park Boulevard. And we'd walk there, all the neighborhood kids, and we'd get lemon ice and strawberry ice in those little teeny bottles that had about 2 drops of liquid in, but it was just so neat opening up those little bottles. And it's just not the same when you walk into a store, other than Tops, because you're usually greeted by Marty. It was just so nice to have them almost like family. Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you, Carol. Much the way big box stores have replaced hardware stores and department stores, the mega convenience store has replaced a mom and pop corner store. You can get gas, you can get just about anything. They're much larger, more sterile environments, and certainly more impersonal. But nostalgia aside, I would like to ask Len Thornton if he could come up and tell us which he prefers. Are we making progress or have we lost something? Len.
Thank you, Mr. Topic Master. I do think we've lost something. When I grew up in the town of Tonawanda, not too far from Niagara Falls Boulevard and Sheridan Drive, our go-to place as a kid was Be Quick Market on Sheridan Drive in Parkhurst. And I remember going in there and just marveling at all the varieties of candy. I believe we had a themed meeting about favorite candies in the past year. Mine, by the way, is Three Musketeers. A strong second is a Heath Bar. And that was Be Quick. And I also remember seeing a sign on the door in the later years, limit. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 students at a time, maximum. And I saw that sign before I even realized what that meant or why they had to do that. Such youthful innocence. But getting back to the question, C-stores have come a long way. Used to be when you got gas, you went in there, it was a grungy little counter, you paid the man for how much you pumped, and you were on your way. Now you can get virtually anything, hot sandwiches, cold sandwiches, prepared foods, coffees like you wouldn't believe. Some of them even have taps where you can fill a growler and get craft beers, in addition to all those staples, those things you run out of after your weekly shopping trip. They charge a premium for them. Don't get me wrong, but they are convenient. They do live up to their name. I think I prefer it this way, especially if you're on the road traveling. There's always something you forget, or when you need a snack or a little pick-me-up or an extra cup of coffee, it's there for you. So thank you, convenience stores, and thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Len. I'll call for reports. Tracy, how did they do on time? Okay, for those of you on Zoom, everyone qualified. And Larry, can we have a word master's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. I am happy to report convenience has been doing quite well. Mark, introducing table topics. Usually we use it during table topics, and only 2 of our contestants I heard used the word. Margot and Len used it twice. Carol, I don't know if I heard you say convenient. All right, so and therefore Margot and Len did qualify, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Larry. And with that, I would like to turn control of the meeting over to our Toastmaster, Dave. Please cast your votes for Len or Margot.
Has everyone voted? Because I can't say anything until everyone's voted. Len, I could not agree with what you said. I could not agree more. You're 1,000% correct. But no one at that modern Speedway or that modern gas station, Red Apple, is going to take monopoly money on faith. So that was funny. But that's the way it was. A 5-year-old kid could walk into a corner store with a note from their mother and come out with the pack of Chesterfields or Lucky Strikes or Camels. Insane as you look back now. What inspired me for this theme was I live at 142 Allen Street in the historic North End, and we so proudly refer to as Pioneer Hill. Phil Russell's going to correct me later, but I understand it was called Pioneer Hill. And at 131 Allen Street was Hannigan's store. And after I lost my dad, my mother and I retreated back to her parents' house at 7 Monroe, not even 100 yards to Hannigan's store. Well, Hannigan's had everything you needed. It had produce, it had canned goods. Incredibly, they had meat. You got everything you wanted, and it was fresh. You went home with 4 pork chops that were never frozen and threw them in the frying pan. So it's quite European. And in a perfect world, we'd all live in Europe, and we'd all go to the village every day, and we'd go to those shops and get everything fresh. Instead of loading up, no offense, Marty, instead of loading up shopping cart after shopping cart. But that's part of my inspiration. It was more than convenience. It was fresh. It was incredible. And naturally, with my makeup, I would go in with my cousin Jimmy, and we're about the same age, and we'd go into Hannigan's, and we'd each have a nickel. Well, I came out with a Snickers bar. I couldn't hunt and peck. Oh, cousin Jimmy, he was the king of hunt and peck. I'd come out of there with 1 candy bar. He'd come out with a half pound of penny candy. But those were the days. And speaking of groceries, now it's time for the meat and potatoes. We're going to get in our speaking portion. Evaluator number 1 this morning is Marty Johnson, and his subject is good old Kate Orr. And Marty will tell us what the goals are for Kate. Marty Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This morning, Kate
is presenting out of the Persuasive Influence Path. It's a level 3 elective, and the project is Prepare for an Interview. And it's a role play with Jen Zappel. It's a 5 to 7 minute presentation, Madam Timer. The purpose is to practice the skills needed to present herself well in an interview. Jen Zappala is the president of a local events company called Introducing 716 and will be interviewing Kate Orr for the position of Director of Customer Experience. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you, Marty. Let me adjust the microphone. Let's see, eyeing things up here. All righty. Interview practice. If you know you got an interview, you damn well better practice. Kate.
The microphone is perfect. I thought I might have to drop it lower.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, Jennifer.
Yes, Kate, it's wonderful to meet you too. I'm excited that you are interviewing for this position. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what interests you about the position of Director of Customer Experience.
I am so excited to work with people. As you saw in my resume, my basic passion is to help people enjoy their lives. And having come from this area of the 716, there's nothing I could think of doing in this next time of change than helping people enjoy their lives. It's something we need now more than ever. And I was recently furloughed from another position where I coordinated events. And when your opportunity came up on LinkedIn, I was thrilled. So thank you very much for giving me this interview.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a lot of questions for you today, and hopefully we can get through a couple of them. Yeah, I took a look through your resume and I can see you have a lot of experience doing budgeting and maximizing profits, but tell me a little bit about how you would handle some of the other elements of this position, such as inventory management and point of sale management.
Great question. I first would need to know what exactly your goals are. I feel like I know a bit because your website is so thorough and your master plan for the next 5 years is exciting. I would want to know what was happening before and where we need to fix holes. Have there been inventory problems in the past, or is that something that has been very smooth? I don't need to reinvent the wheel. But if we need to target changes, I'm happy to. I have a lot of connections in the area with inventory, like I know you need to set up tents, tables, chairs, and hire staff. All those things are connected to the inventory, whether we have it or we need it, and I can make that happen. I think that, what was that second question besides inventory again, if you don't mind?
Point of sale management.
Point of sale management. That is exciting because there's so much technology. And I've noticed that you have leased a lot of your equipment, and I would encourage us to continue doing that. And always stay aware of what new tech is available. But I love the system that you're working with because it gives mobile units and units that are in place at a gate, for example, so we can work very thoroughly and have always trustworthy staff running all of that, so we can handle the cash and handle in and out.
Okay, great. So in terms of like your own experiences, can you tell me about a time when you were working on a project that maybe didn't go as expected, and if you could go back in time, how you would do things differently?
Great question. Just last year, I worked with a project where I needed to bring in the local county sheriffs and the local county fire police. And we had a planning session and many phone calls in the month leading to the event. And on the day of the event,
right around 8:30 in the morning, when the fire police showed up, things went sideways briefly. They were very concerned about something that I'm still not exactly certain, because all of them had different opinions from that organization. But they threatened to leave, and we couldn't let that happen because they were managing one of our gates. So I quickly got our team leaders together with the team lead of the fire police and the sheriff, and we smoothed it out. They stayed, and at the end of the event that day, the fire police were thrilled with how it went, except for the rocky start. I thought the phone call prep was enough and the meetings in advance. However, they had great suggestions for next year, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say as we evolve that. So the relationship smoothed out, they stayed, and the event went well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tell me about what you can do for us that someone else wouldn't be able to do for us.
I see from the job description that there are a lot of hats that need to be worn. I do that very well, as you could see from my background. I don't think there are too many people who have backgrounds in all of these skills of management and hospitality and tourism and training and sales. I've been a teacher, I've been a sales associate, I've run events for 20 years, small events and massive events. I bring my skills of bridge building. I'm a bridge builder. My dad has called me for many years Switzerland, kind of in a mocking way, because he's certainly not Switzerland, but he means that I'm a diplomat, I'm tactful. I try to make peace, and I do. I listen, I try to negotiate the best move forward for everyone. So as a bridge builder, listening is critical and taking action when necessary.
All right, thank you. I just want to see where we are in time. Do we have time for one more question?
We're at green. We just hit green.
All right, so we have time for one more, hopefully. That means you'll have to wrap it up quickly, but the person that we're looking for in this organization really is going to need to wear a lot of hats and manage a lot of different details. So can you tell me what tools you use right now to prioritize and stay organized?
Can you repeat the question? There was a tech issue at the end.
Sure. What I was saying was in this role, you'll have to wear a lot of different hats and manage a lot of details. So what tools and habits do you use to prioritize and stay organized?
Tools and habits to stay organized. I am getting some great tips from a coach I'm working with right now to make sure I stay on track, and no procrastination, because the best events are planned well. There's a saying, man plans, God laughs. It's so true. We have to be ready for things to go sideways, but we have to be prepared. That doesn't mean we don't plan. So staying tight with organizing, planning, and being able to shift as needed. I have great skills of flexibility and going with the flow. So plan, but be ready to shift when needed. I think I could bring that very well to the company.
All right, thank you so much. It's been lovely meeting with you. We have some other candidates and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
We do have ballots, and we have space on those ballots for you to make notes and to comment on Kate's efforts and let her know what she could have done better or what she did very well. I will ask that the timing light go back to neutral while I'm up here. Have an exciting moment. The next evaluator and the next speaker, I've known them both for a very long time. Our evaluator evaluating Michael Licata is Phil Russell. Phil Russell.
Dave, you mentioned Hannigan's for me.
Oh, that's right.
Around the corner, up a half a block, another half a block, right there, Hannigan's store. Next block over, Mac's store. Next block over, our favorite, Dutchie Strange's, the beer man. One thing that wasn't mentioned, gas stations. My father had one. There was one across the street, one down on the corner, one up at top of the hill. Everybody had a specialty. Then all of a sudden, they're gone because of the convenience stores. They were combined. It's the way it goes. Change.
Market forces.
Market forces. You got it. You're in marketing. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, let's see here. Oh, here's what I have to do. Evaluation form. This Michael is doing is writing a speech with purpose. It's 5 to 7 minutes. I happen to have done this. It's at level 1, and level 1 in the engaging humor levels path. The purpose of this project is to learn or review basic methods for writing a speech with a defined purpose and to present a well-organized speech on any topic. You have the title, Mr. Toastmaster?
I've just been handed a note from Central Control. And we do have a guest, but I will introduce the guest after Michael is done speaking. Well, the guest zoomed in, by the way, during the miracle of modern electronics. Michael Licata, steps to build better, Michael Licata.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. We all join Toastmasters for different reasons. We all, either professionally or whether we want to give ourselves confidence becoming a better speaker. And as we learn, we become better listeners, we become better speakers. And I'm here this morning to encourage everyone to help take that next step in building a better Toastmaster and becoming a better public speaker. And this speech and this topic, it inspired me to foster the idea of making, when you go to write out speeches, make sure you use active words when you go to actually sit down and write out speeches. Active verbs versus passive verbs are very different. If you use more active verbs, you have more impact. You do a better job as a presentation of yourself with more active verbs than passive verbs. It is vitally important to say I am doing is passive. I did is active. I went is active. I ate is active versus I am going, which is passive, and I am, I are, and using those verbs that slowly become filler words in our speeches. And one of those things that also needs to be discussed when you're trying to become a better Toastmaster is to cut out filler words. And I have found that the easiest way to start is by using active words when you go to sit down and you go into writing your speeches, because when you cut out filler words, yes, you might not make time, but it's more impactful. Your speech becomes more impactful, and most of the settings aren't timed. So I encourage everyone to use a thesaurus when you go to write out speeches. I think it's important to understand projects. It's important to use active verbs. I try to use them throughout the speech by saying I wrote. I spent many hours developing the speech idea and sitting down and writing this particular speech, because it makes you sound more impactful and you're able to build a presence when you go to speak. And I find that it is very important to use active verbs in building your speeches, because you're also able to slow yourself down when you speak. And once you're able to slow yourself down when you speak, you can remove those filler words again, and you can slow down and become a better Toastmaster and become a better speaker through your active speaking and your active words when you develop an idea. When you're developing ideas for speeches, for contests, and for other professional settings in which you need public speaking. So I encourage everyone this morning to look at a thesaurus when you go down and sit down and write a speech. Make sure that you're getting your ideas across and using active verbs to get your ideas across instead of just using simple passive verbs like most of us are used to using when we go to develop our speeches. Mr. Toastmaster.
Just as before, I'd like to remind you that you do have a section on your ballot to write messages to the speaker. But before I introduce the third and final speaker, Sam Otto, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Sam, where are you from?
I'm from the Rochester area. I used to work out in Buffalo till last July, but now I'm back in Rochester, so I have a shorter commute to work.
Oh, good for you. Well, on behalf of all the members of AM Lockport Toastmasters, we wish to welcome you to our meeting, and we will call on you at the end of the meeting to find out what you thought of us. And we have somebody in the peanut gallery, Eric Snyder. You have a question? He's part of District 65 Trio. He's our public director. Oh, thank you, Sam. Thanks for coming by.
I can't stick nothing past Eric. Thank you, Eric.
Well, you know, Eric always cleans up.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been wanting to attend one of your meetings in quite a while, but I don't want to disrupt your meeting, so
No,
I'll
it's
be
never a
myself.
disruption. We will invite you the next time. We're not that far from the Bank Theory Barge Canal here, so we want you to kayak down. That would be great. We'll bring in the local paper, we'll get that covered, and perhaps the local radio station as well. You'll be a little out of breath, but we won't ask you to speak until the end of the meeting.
All right, sounds like a plan.
All righty. This is where I asked the Rochester trivia question, but I'll let him off the hook. Our third evaluator this morning, our President, Thomas Helwine. Mr. President.
Our third speaker this morning is going to be, oh my God, Steve Smith. Yeah, Steve Smith, yes. I had the SS part and then.
Oh, yeah, Helwine had the SS part.
Exactly. You will come up and give a speech. And you will like it and you will do it twice. This is the speech where you do give it twice. I like this being a part of many of the pathways because when you give a speech, get feedback, and then give a second speech, incorporating that feedback, I think that will make us all better speakers and all better deliverers of a message. And I think he has a really great message for us this morning to light one candle. It's a 5 to 7 minute speech. That's it.
Just give us a moment to lower the lighting in the room and brighten the light behind the stained glass windows. As I introduce speaker number 3, Steve Smith, with "To Light One Candle," a remarkable Toastmaster, a talented man, and Phil and I are so happy that we discovered him for the importance of being earnest, launching his theatrical career. Phil and I haven't done a play in 10 years, and you can't stop Steve now. He's one, I know, every 6 months. Steve Smith.
Thank you.
Now, I've written a nice speech here, and I'll get to it in a minute. I may actually use some of it. But I decided a little background was in order. Now, I've lived in Wilson close to 68 years. I've been following the local politics for probably 50 of those years. Now, in all that time, one theme has come raining through hard. The people of Wilson are opposed to change. And you can tell me that's common all over, and it is. However, in Wilson, it's an epidemic. To give you an idea how bad it is, we have a group down there. It was founded, Jill was part of it for a number of years, called Watch Wilson Grow. And they did such controversial things as put flowers on Main Street, devote money to beautifying the local parks, this sort of thing. Well, a few years back, they decided Watch Wilson Grow insinuated change, and change is evil. They changed their name to Celebrate Wilson. Okay? Such is life in Wilson. Now, I have also been trying to get involved in politics down there for a number of years. I've run for office on several occasions, which leads me to the speech I actually wrote. So recently, I went to a caucus, our caucus for my party, and I'm not going to name it because we're not going to get into that war, to run for village trustee. There's an opening for a 4-year term. And I said, this could be fun. It's the office that Phil Russell now holds. I said, what could be better? Phil Russell and I fighting for the same office. Well, that didn't happen. It went to a candidate who showed up at the caucus who, imagine this, was against change. So I didn't get the nod. I understand Phil didn't either. So that's just not going to happen. Well, this isn't the first time. I tried before, didn't get the nod. I ran before, didn't get elected. But I am stubborn if I'm anything, so I don't give up easily. During the caucus, I heard the same complaints and arguments. People didn't understand why things happen the way they do. They don't know why the government runs the way it does. They felt our leaders were keeping them in the dark deliberately. Distrust breeds fear. Fear breeds anger. This anger breeds resistance to any and all change. So I do go to most town and village meetings, and our leaders can feel this resistance. You can feel that fear. It's palpable. To support change of any kind in our village is political suicide. I've seen it too many times over the years. They come up with an idea that I think it'd be great. The leaders push it. Next term, they're gone. We don't want to change anything ever. When Joe was part of the planning board, they wanted to rearrange the parking on Main Street because it's archaic. People came out of the woodwork. I had the person get up and tell a group, vehicles haven't changed since the 60s. What? So yeah, I think it's an epidemic down there. Why does it have to be this way? Well, during my speech in the caucus, I said, we cannot hide from change. We can't keep going the way we are. This is unsustainable. Now look around you. Main Street's dead. We have empty buildings. We have nothing. You can't keep doing this. And I come up with an inspiration, spur of the moment, as many of these things are. I want to light, I said, it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. I want to light that candle and I want your help to do it. Hey, that sounds great. Didn't get the knob. They voted for the guy against change. Well, after the caucus was over, I kind of had an epiphany. So I was thinking about all this. Why are they the way they are? People aren't stupid. Our leaders aren't corrupt. Well, most of them. But they're perceived that way because they're not communicators. We have never had, and after I wrote this line down, I thought, well, yes, we do, because Phil's been in office. We have never had a communicator on either the town or the village board. Now, they're good at running the village. They know what they're doing. They just don't know how to communicate this information to the people. And therefore, people have no understanding of how the government runs. They're not public speakers. But now the other side of this, it's a two-sided coin. People don't go to meetings. And I blasted them about that too. I told them at the caucus, we have to start going to meetings. I mean, we collectively, because I do go to the meetings. They sit back, they don't understand what's going on. That people are busy, they don't have time, okay. So our leaders need to be even more effective communicators to get these points across. And I decided, this is where I can help. This is where I can light that candle. Public speaking involves both talking and listening. The leaders need to listen to the people down there, try to understand their concerns and address them. Now, part of this problem is the fact that while the people who are in charge are up there trying to conduct a meeting, they've got a lawyer in their ear telling them what not to say. Now, unfortunately, that comes across like they're trying to hide something, and they're not. They're just trying to, as you know, CYA about everything, and that's an unfortunate necessity in this day and age. But as I said, it needs to be a two-way street. I need to convince the leaders to be better communicators. And yes, that means trying to get them to join Toastmasters. Phil, you may be interested in this. I was in a town supervisor's ear for a while, trying to get him to come to Toastmasters. He said, yeah, but it never happened. They need it badly. And these are the people who will tell you, I'm already a public speaker. Yeah, but you're not very good at it. So that's to address them, to convince them they need to be better communicators, to get them to join if I can. I also need to convince the people to actually listen and try to understand what the leaders are telling us. Is it a tall order? Yes, it is. Is it possible? Absolutely. And I decided that's where I can light the candle and drive away the darkness of distrust. Mr. Toastmaster.
I invite you to once again take a moment to write Stephen a note. So we're gonna vamp a little bit. Oh, we have. I've done this before. A brief message to Sam Otto. If you were in the kayak, that would be going against the current, so you're really going to have to give it a good shot. Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, Sam, for $64 and the right to play again next week, what was in Rochester before the completion of the Erie Barge Canal?
That is, I apologize. I'm not a history buff. I have no idea.
Well, the answer is nothing.
Oh.
Rochester is completely born of the canal and the activity on the canal, but you'll be happy to know, Sam, that Rochester is the first city on the canal to double its population from all the economic benefits that the Erie Barge Canal provided. And it was the Silicon Valley of its day. It was the hottest technological advance in the history of the world when that baby opened up. So we can all be proud, all us canal towns. When I see you, I'll ask you another question to make up for that one, but we have to get along. Timer's report for the speakers.
Mr. Toastmaster, Kate Orr qualified, 7 minutes, 6 seconds. Mike Licata, 3 minutes, 58 seconds. You've been disqualified. And Steve Smith, you qualify at 6 minutes and 50 seconds. Mr. Toastmaster.
Please mark your ballots for the two that qualified. Steve Smith and Kate Orr. At this time, I'm going to turn the power of the lectern over to that stalwart, my bitter rival, my old friend. First met him in Little Theater a long time ago. He had this cute little part at the end of a play where he just walked out to give the juvenile lead in the play some hope. So he came out in his best Robert Redford persona in his white, crisp sailor's uniform, no lines or nothing. He just stood there. My favorite himbo, Tom Moran.
Thank you, David. You caught me off guard. Can everybody hear me? Can nobody hear me? Oh, okay. Good, because I had a thing up on my screen that said that I was muted. So let me, I'm to call on the evaluators, I think here. So let me see, could we first have an evaluation of Kate and Jen, and that will be conducted by Marty Johnson. Marty, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests, and especially Kate, for reminding us of good habits to use in the interviewing process and practicing for an interview. Kate, I'd like to start with what you did well. You had great eye contact with the interviewer, the whole presentation. You answered the questions directly, and there were a couple instances where you asked for clarification, and that is a great skill to be able to do. Some people may just mumble along and BS their way through, but you asked for clarification. That shows that you're definitely interested in the position and you wanted to give your best answer to the interviewer. You knew your material. You knew what the job entailed for the most part, and you answered the questions and backed it up with your experience from prior jobs. A couple things that I think may help, I wrote down contest contention. To bring this speech to contest contention or contest level, or to win a contest or the speaker of the day, I would say the main thing is to use more hand gestures. I think there were a couple opportunities during your presentation, excuse me, when you said that you were talking about, there was a question, how would you do things differently, that was posed by the interviewer. And you mentioned how you had worked with the fire and the police. And I was thinking possibly you could use your hand gestures about an incident using hand gestures when you were dealing with them. And more specifically, when Jen asked how you would differentiate yourself from other candidates, you said that you're successful in other positions and other jobs using wearing many hats. And I thought you could have said, I have experience in management and in sales and customer service and inventory. And that was my takeaway from your presentation, to use more hand gestures. And at the end of the interview, last but not least, and I may have missed it, but I would like to have heard you let the interviewer know that you're interested in the position, you wanted the job based on your qualifications, and perhaps ask, when will you be making the hiring decision and when can I expect to hear from you? I know that's a lot and you had the red light, but I feel you wrapped up the speech and you weren't rushed. And again, you had great eye contact the whole speech. You answered the questions and asked for clarifications when you weren't sure, and you knew your material. I wish you the best, Kate, on your persuasive influence path and your future job opportunities. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator, Tom Moran.
Thank you, Marty. Up next, evaluating Michael Licata is my cousin, Phil Russell. Phil, you're up.
My cousin Tom. I remember the house well. I'm sucking up to him so I don't get a bad evaluation by him. More importantly, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Michael and our guest. We have a guest. That's great. Engaging humor
level 1, writing a speech with a purpose. You have a purpose. You caught my attention with what you were talking about. However, I'd like to see a little bit more enthusiasm and vocal variety. Michael has improved since I've first seen him dramatically. His pronunciation is now excellent. I think your father called you a mumbler when you first started with Toastmasters. Now you enunciate, you pronounce those words correctly, and you focus on it. That's great. That's an excellent tribute. Your story is excellent, and you could spread it out to make time. Just have to throw a few more things in there. That's not a problem. One thing I did want to mention, this is not about Michael. He sent me the evaluation form. I got it. I printed it. I was rushed. I didn't get this page 2 and 3. I am going to go back to, when I go back to the office, I'm going to try and print up those so we can have them. But I may not be here next week, or, because of Zoom and things like that. If you get a chance, print some more out and bring them, or somebody that can print them out, page 2 and 3, because that gives us the evaluation, like the numbers that are in there, you poke those in there, and what the objectives are. That helps. And they're all the same for every speech. It's the only thing that's different is the first page. And I think that's great. So Michael, I think overall, you did a great job. I want to see that enthusiasm, vocal variety, and always really pump it up in the beginning and end it with a zing. And that will make you even better. Right, Mr. General Evaluator?
You're correct. Our next evaluator, evaluating Stephen Smith's speech this morning, will be Thomas Elwig. Thomas? Elwig. Did I say that right, Thomas?
Divine.
Yeah, well.
Good morning. Steve often comes in and has notes for a speech, and he gives a personal story a lot of the time. This one was a good story because it had development in it, where he started off talking about something he wanted to do, his hero's journey, the things that were up against him, the opposition, and how he thinks he's going to be able to become victorious and fulfill his thoughts and dreams on becoming a light, lighting a candle for change in a room full of people who don't want change. So I wrote the notes 2 different ways for him. One is just improvements. This is just everything I hate list. And then things you did well and everything I liked list. So the sandwich approach for me, I'd have to jump back and forth, but let me start off the sandwich approach by saying you did a good job picking a good subject and something that you could definitely improve on as far as providing a speech that should change people's minds if they listen. Some of the important things to work on is, I thought at first you came up and gave the background and you really were intense and you grabbed the lectern, but then that became the norm throughout the speech with a lot of looking down and a lot of referencing of notes. But flipping back to good, you'd inflect on something that you wanted us to pay attention on, and then you'd talk about it a little bit more. And then every once in a while, you'd repeat the same point. So a few of your points you did repeat, and I'd like to see that continue in the next attempt at this speech. I did like the fact that you stayed away from politics and said you're not going to address it, because that would definitely lose half your audience automatically. They just stop listening in the way things are today. It's just good, just to leave that out. Continue to develop the story. Some of the things I'd like to see also, if you could have a prop of any kind, like you could talk about a single point of light and have a laser pointer, or I know you can't have an actual candle in here, but I think you have one from the Raven, that little light a candle. I think you actually do have a candle that you could light. I want you to pay, as a last thing, pay a lot of attention to the feedback that everyone's going to give you today. All right. I'd like to also read that feedback so that when I evaluate you again on the second attempt on this speech, that I know what everyone else, the audience, thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator. Now I would call upon the timer, Tracy Farrell. Tracy, how did our evaluators do on time this morning?
Thank you, Tom. I want to report that everybody did qualify. Marty at 3 minutes, 15 seconds. He qualified with the buffer. Phil Russell, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And Thomas, 2 minutes and 59 seconds. So Marty, Phil, and Thomas all qualified.
Okay, thank you very much. And I might remind those of us who are online that you need to send your vote to Larry McKenzie in the audience. Now, I don't see David moving, so I believe I'm up for introducing the rest of the participants this morning. I will go firstly. You know what I want to do? I forgot who the master was. You know, on the schedule it was Anne Marie Lenhart, but I forgot who it was. So before I do too much speaking, I would like the master's report.
Good morning, Tom. I am the master this morning.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I did not hear a lot of ahs and ums. I heard a few out of Ryan and a few so's, but beyond that, I was so intent listening to all of the speeches that I really did not hear a lot of ahs this morning. So I think everyone did really well. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Mike, if you feel you need to make a supplemental report after I'm done speaking, please feel free to
I'll send you the form in writing, triplicate.
This morning's meeting went very well. The evaluators this morning were all quite professional. I enjoyed mostly the speakers. I thought each speak had its own challenges, and I think the evaluators that evaluated those speeches actually hit on what was demanded of the speakers and what they did well and what they could improve. And I liked in particular when Marty talked about the speech between Jen and Kate, that he interjected a couple of times, that's my take and it's my opinion. So whether you agree or not, he's giving you his ideas on how he would approach that particular subject. And I think we all need to remember that when we're being evaluated, that these are just suggestions. You can take them, you can leave them, but they're all like their own ideas on what you can do better. Phil did a very nice job with Mike's evaluation. Mike has come miles and miles from when he first joined the club. And I think Phil was very encouraging this morning, which is the major part of evaluation. And Thomas does a very thorough evaluation. I admire his skill on evaluating speakers. So everyone did an excellent job. I would like to address the theme of the speech, theme of the meeting this morning. And I'm not sure that Sam was here at the beginning, but if you're still there, Sam, the theme of the meeting was David Licata picked one on every corner. And it was about convenience stores in particular. And what this theme does for a meeting is it engages everyone in the meeting, because what we're talking about is we're reminiscing. and everyone can reminisce, and everyone can learn about your fellow Toastmasters and your friends and your neighbors by reminiscing. It gives us a way of connecting with people. I don't know if you get out and about and you socialize with people, reminiscing is one of the easiest ways to get to know people, to get to know their history, and to follow them along. Now, David's meetings are always fun. They're always interesting. And he does an excellent job, very smooth up at the podium when he addresses the shortcomings of the meeting or what he has to do. I know he said right away that I pick on him, and I do. You always pick on the people that you love. And David is one of the people that I miss so much at not being there. I'm very happy for him today that he had such an in-person crowd in the audience, because he plays well to a large audience. So he did an excellent job. And one of the things that he does that I would encourage all Toastmasters to do was lead the applause. We have an in-person audience there, and I know Dave had some trouble getting people to applaud. So please follow the leader, follow the Toastmaster of the day, and applaud for those people who get up and give a speech or an evaluation or talk about their job. But I do really appreciate Dave's meeting this morning. And he's getting up, he's coming up to the podium. So are you going to call for reports now, Dave?
My dear friend Tom Moran, I turn the power of the lectern over to you, and that is your call. You can call for the report, or I can call for the reports, but first I have a question. When you were indeed a meat cutter, was that in a mom and pop, a convenience store, or a supermarket when you were a butcher? Because I forgot, I'm sorry, I forgot.
I worked at this store, first stocking shelves. It was called Strong's Market in Appleton. And it, of course, went the way of all those little stores. It became, when I was stocking shelves, it became harder there were so many products coming out, and you had so much limited shelf space that you couldn't carry everything that people wanted. And it became very difficult to manage inventory on a mom and pop scale. So that place eventually went to primarily just processing beef and pigs and pork and chickens and whatever, and selling meat across the counter. So, and that got to be very competitive price wise as well. So, yeah, it all went the way as all the other little convenience stores. But we do have stores on every corner up here in Boston. They're called Dunkin's, and you can go in, you can get a donut and a cup of coffee every couple of miles. There's one. They're all within walking distance. So
thank you.
Once again, David, thank you for the theme this morning.
Thank you so much. And it does bring back a lot of memories. And as a sales representative for Licata Brothers Wholesale, I called on my share of mom and pop corner stores. So it brought back a lot of memories for myself as well. My cousin David S. Licata, I'm David P. Licata. My cousin David S. Licata was calling on a little corner store in North Tonawanda, and the woman thought he was so cute, she'd take him upstairs for lunch. I wasn't that cute, let's face it. I will be happy to call. Yes.
David, could I say something else?
Sure.
Regards to your theme of the meeting, I don't know whether it was just me, but did I hear that Archie and Edith singing in the background? Boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that make the parade. Man, we could use a president like Herbert Hoover today. I could have swore I heard that.
Oh, well, good. That means I performed a little bit of magic if that popped up. All righty then. doing my best to remember to call on the word master last, so we can all have another crack at using the word convenient. Convenient did win out. It did take over the day, but the true theme was mom and pop on the corner selling everything from A to Z. So you called on Mike Florio, but I'm going to call on Tech and Gesture Master Jackie Kenny. Jackie Kenny.
Thank you, sir. I wasn't expecting to be called on at that point, so I wasn't on deck. And I wish everyone would try to be more careful about being on deck. If you know you're the next speaker, you're going to be called on, get yourself in the area so you're not walking from the back of the room and creating a long pause. I think everybody needs to be a little more careful about that. I noticed today that Sylvia, Phil, and Mike Licata and Marty were all on deck before their speaking opportunity. The people on Zoom were very good at unmuting themselves prior to their speaking opportunities, and that is also a very good way to keep things moving smoothly. Jen and Kate did a masterful job in conducting a joint program. And I have to think that you must have practiced that for a while. Let's see. I liked Ryan's blurred background. It highlights his beard. I would like Margot to raise her camera up, so we're seeing her face on this level. And according to tech person, we need to take advantage of the fact that there's a rug on the floor here highlighting the speaking area. So you can come out. You don't need to stay behind the lectern, which is not a podium. And that's my report.
Now I have to go on YouTube and make sure I didn't use the word podium. I don't believe I did, but I'll be happy to double check myself. All righty. Hey, Sylvia, what did we learn this morning? Sylvia Baptiste, Niagara Falls, New York, perhaps more corner stores than anywhere.
Funny, Tom, you did remind us now we have Tim Hortons on every corner instead of a convenience store. I have some basic questions at the beginning of the program. How many are on Zoom today? And one, right. Was David a good student?
No.
Not until he got all the hard courses behind him, was his saying there. And what task did Tom Moran volunteer for today?
General evaluator.
Where did Margot was raised? Outside Albany suburb, right? And according to Carol, who greets us at Tops?
Marty.
Like I said, those were the basics.
Hi, Marty.
Then I got really into the speakers. And one of our speakers, Kate, what does her dad call her at times? Right. And also she had a quote. She had a quote. Does anyone remember the quote? Man plans, God's laugh. I like that. According to Mike Licata, we should use active verbs instead of passive.
Passive.
Right. And in Steve, what area of Western New York does not like change?
Everywhere.
And Steve, could I steal your quote? It's better to be one candle, light one candle instead of in the darkness. I like that. Well, I'm giving you credit for it today. Thank you.
see. Hmm. Well, that's the end of the reports. Oh, my gosh. After that, sorry. Oh, the grammarian. And now here's Marion, no, this is Nancy, the grammarian. Thank you so much, Nancy, for sorting me out. Oh, my gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, for not forgetting the grammar. Toastmasters, today you made being grammarian a great convenience. I only heard yeah, so, IR, and a few excessive uses of the connector word and. Dave, as you warmed up, you redeemed yourself with masterful use of vocabulary such as himbro and bogata, words I didn't really know very well. I also heard eloquent phrases and words such as sparking memories, ether world, expanded the entire realm, impactful speech, market forces, build a presence, palpable, being on deck, and what a great word of the day. Thank you. That's my report.
I have to go down this list one more time. I have to check it twice. All right. Without another word, our word master, Larry McKenzie.
As Dave would say, to my chagrin, is that the word you've used? To chagrin?
Peter J. McNeil.
I was a little concerned, and my report will reflect this. Up until 8:30, it is now 8:33, 8:34, so we are in overtime, technically. I was concerned because as I was counting the uses of convenience, we were at 13 times it was mentioned throughout the meeting. I know, no significance there, but 13 times, like 13 doesn't reflect Western New York right about now. But we had 4 additional conveniences that were after Dave asked us to use the word, which brought us to 17. And I think 17 is a wonderful number in Western New York. Back to you.
Dave was looking at his watch when he should have been using his cell phone, so I'd like to call up our president to close the meeting, Tom Holine. It's Helvine. Helvine. Oh, we gotta check in with Sam Otto. Sam Otto, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Sam, how close are you to Route 18?
I'm not sure how close I am to Route 18. I'm right off of the 90, not too far from there, from the Leroy exit and Henrietta exit.
Well, I want you to hop on Route 18 and head west until you come to the beautiful village of Wilson. In spite of the fact that they don't like change, what they have not changed is quite lovely, especially after you've been through Orchid. It really stands out. I'm sorry, Katie, I'm sorry. All right.
So is that the Route 18? Is that the convenient way to attend your meetings?
Thank you so much for your patience, and I'm going to get out of your way.
There's winners up here somewhere.
Oh, not on my list.
There it is. Thank you.
Might I ask, since Tom's there, who did what in the contest over the weekend?
You gotta ask Sam how he enjoyed the meeting.
Oh, ask Tom how he enjoyed the meeting. Sam? Sam?
In a contest.
Oh, yes. Sam, how'd you like our meeting?
I definitely enjoyed your meeting. It's being on Zoom, it's very convenient. I had to make sure I got the word of the day. You've definitely mastered hybrid meetings. So I'm hoping you could send me some tips I could share with the other folks. And I liked how, even though you arrived a little bit late, you still drew me into the meeting. That was a great technique. And to go along with your theme, I wish there was a Eric Snyder or Marty on every corner, because their friendly faces really would create a positive change in our area. The first speech was talking about interviews, and the one thing I would recommend is being prepared for interview questions, what they may ask. Rehearse them with your peers. You may reach out to me, I can schedule a meeting on Zoom. If you email me at therealsammodel@gmail.com, and I can help you rehearse. But also be prepared to ask them questions specifically about their business so they know you did your research. And I just want to make sure you know the next level of dates for the contest. Your area contest is this Saturday from 9 to 12. And I haven't received a Zoom link for it. So if you could send that to me, and we have like 1 hour breaks throughout the day for mid-year training for the trio. So if you could send it to me, I'd like to jump in if I can. And the division contest is Friday, March 11th from 6 to 9 p.m. And then the district is April 29th from 6 to 9 p.m. and Saturday the 30th, 9 to 12 a.m. And please don't forget the open house incentive. If you had held an open house, please send me the flyer and the agenda. And if you get 2 new members about it, you also receive an additional incentive. And I can email those to your club president as well as your VPM if you like that.
Thank you very much, Steve.
I'll turn it back over to you. So hopefully I didn't overwhelm you with too many notes or comments.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day is our open house. That's right. We love St. Patrick's. But it's 8:30. We really got to pick things up as far as pace goes. So I'm going to go, Tom Moran, I'm going to be calling on you to ask you about a title for next meeting, but we're going to jump right to the winners. For table topics this morning, it was Len Thornton. There's a lot of ties this morning. Best evaluator was tied, Phil and Thomas H. That's me. Best speaker, another tie, Steve Smith and Katie Orr. One of you needs to come up and draw at least the winner for the 50-50. You could draw the winner.
Thomas, next week's theme for the meeting is dining out.
What is it, Tom?
Real quick.
Hey, Sam, while they're passing out the awards and drawing for the 50-50, could you please let me know if I could use the district Zoom link for the contest Saturday?
Okay, I believe Kate's going to reply to that email. She sent one to, yeah, you should be able to use the district one for Saturday for the area contest.
Who do I need to confirm that with?
If you can email Pam, she's helping out with the division contest, and
Norman?
yes,
I'll do that this morning. Thank you,
and the
Sam.
division director, yes. And if you need any help, let me know. I'll try and help it on my end.
Thank you. Our winning number this morning ends in 179. 179. Jackie, okay. Tom has his theme, so back over to Tom Moran. Tom Moran, take it away.
Yes, I do have a theme for next week's meeting. It's dining out. We're going to talk about different restaurants and dining out experiences in those restaurants. So please, everyone, tune in, bring your friends and neighbors. We do it virtually. You can do it in person, but let's fill up this screen for me here, okay? And we'll see everyone next week.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Any last announcements, last call? If not, oh. All right, thank you, Katie. Katie's asking for email feedback from anyone online or anyone that didn't give her something already.